You don't belong in this family. Margaret's voice was cold, not angry, not loud, just cold, like ice, the kind of cold that cuts deeper than yelling ever could. I stood still in the middle of the living room, staring at her. My suitcase was by the door, packed with the few things I owned. My dad was standing nearby, quiet as usual, looking down at the floor. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. But Margaret, she looked right at me, without a flicker of warmth or regret. I don't understand, I said, my voice shaking. Why are you sending me away? It's for the best, she replied, like she was talking about a business deal, not my life. You'll be happier with your relatives. This setup just isn't working. Just like that, like I was a bad fit for a puzzle she didn't want to finish. My name is Louise. I was 15 years old the day my stepmother told me I didn't belong. My mom died when I was 9. It was just me and my dad for a while after that. We were close. We missed her deeply, but we had each other. Then Margaret came along. At first, I tried to be hopeful. Maybe she would be kind. Maybe she would care. But from the beginning, Margaret kept her distance. She wasn't openly mean, at least not in a way anyone else would notice, but she never hid the fact that she didn't really want me around. After they got married, she moved into our house with her daughter, Charlotte. Suddenly, everything changed. The way my dad looked at things, the way he acted, like he had to keep the peace, like he couldn't take sides, even if it meant leaving me out. Margaret didn't scream or punish me. Instead, she ignored me. She skipped me at dinner conversations, dismissed my school awards, and acted like I was always in the way. Slowly, I started to disappear in my own home. When she finally told me I was leaving, I didn't fight, I didn't cry, I just picked up my suitcase and walked out. I knew then, really knew, that my dad wasn't going to stand up for me, not now, not ever. My relatives weren't cruel, they gave me a room, food, a roof over my head, but they weren't loving either. I always felt like a visitor, like someone they were doing a favor for. So I kept my head down. I worked after school, saved every dollar I could, and read books late into the night to escape the loneliness. I didn't expect much from anyone anymore. But things started to change when I began volunteering. Helping other people made me feel like I mattered. It gave me something to hold on to, something bigger than my past. It helped me see that I wasn't weak or forgotten. I had a purpose. By the time I turned 25, I had created something of my own, a nonprofit organization called Community Horizons. It was built for people like me, people who were pushed aside, told they didn't belong, but kept going anyway. We started small, helping local schools and shelters with supplies, scholarships, and support. I didn't have much, but I had enough determination to make it work. I worked long hours with a small team who believed in the mission. Slowly, word spread, donors started to notice, more communities reached out. We were growing. By 32, Community Horizons was making a real difference. We helped rebuild businesses, we funded families after hard times, we gave people a second chance, just like the one I had always wanted. One quiet afternoon, I was in my office, sipping cold coffee and reading grant applications. This was the part of the job I loved most, reading about people's stories, their struggles, and how we could help. My assistant, Evelyn, walked in with a new stack of folders. "Fresh batch for you," she said, placing them on my desk. "Thanks," I replied, reaching for the first one on top. The name on the folder made my heart skip a beat. Margaret Bennett. I froze. For a moment, I just stared at the name. It felt like seeing a ghost. All the years I had spent trying to forget that name, and now it was right there on my desk, printed in black ink. I opened the folder slowly. Margaret was applying for a grant to help save a small cafe she had opened after retiring. Business was bad. She needed help. I let out a short, nervous laugh. It was too strange to be real. Margaret Bennett, the woman who told me I didn't belong in her family, was now asking me for support. Evelyn noticed the look on my face. "Everything okay?" she asked. I cleared my throat and closed the folder gently. "Yeah. Just a familiar name," I said. "Good familiar or bad familiar?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I gave a small smile. "Let's just say, it's complicated." I held the folder in my hand, the one with her name on it. When I walked into the cafe and saw her behind the counter, her face went pale, her eyes widened as soon as she recognized me. "You," she whispered, "you're the one reviewing my grant?" "I am," I said, my voice steady. We need to talk, somewhere private. Without waiting for a reply, I followed her to a small office tucked away in the back. It was barely big enough for the two of us. There were old receipts scattered on the desk and a fan in the corner that hummed quietly. Margaret sat across from me, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I could see how uncomfortable she was. I opened the folder and placed it on the desk between us. I've looked over your application, I began calmly, and I have a few thoughts. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand gently. This isn't about what you knew or didn't know when you applied, I said. It's about your business, and whether this grant can actually help it survive. She gave a slow nod, lips pressed tightly together. I continued, the cafe is struggling, your financials show that, so, here are my terms. If we decide to help, you'll get partial funding, but it's not a handout. You'll need to attend business workshops, follow a new marketing plan, and send regular updates on your progress. She sat perfectly still, taking it in, then she swallowed hard and nodded. I understand, she said quietly, and, thank you. There was a small shake in her voice. It sounded real, but I could feel the heavy silence between us. This wasn't just about money or a struggling cafe. This was about everything that had gone unsaid for years. Margaret stared at her hands for a moment, then she looked up. I know I probably don't deserve this, she said, her voice trembling, but I do appreciate it. That made me pause. Hearing her say that, admit she didn't deserve it, caught me off guard. Margaret had always seemed so sure of herself, always in control, but now, she looked unsure, even small. This isn't about what you deserve, I said, it's about the people who depend on this cafe, your employees, your customers, they deserve a chance. She nodded, eyes dropping again. I didn't know it was you. If I had, I wouldn't have applied. I leaned forward. That's exactly why we're here right now, because you need to hear this, I said. My voice was calm, but firm. You sent me away, Margaret. You made me feel like I didn't belong, like I was a problem to be handled, not a child who needed love. And now you're here, asking me for help. Can you see how strange that feels? Her shoulders sagged. She looked down, blinking quickly. I was wrong, she said softly, so wrong. I wanted that moment to feel satisfying, to feel like I'd won something, but instead, I just felt sad. I had waited so long to hear those words, and now that I had, they didn't erase the pain I'd carried for years. Why? I asked suddenly. Why did you do it? Why did you send me away like that? Margaret looked up, and for the first time, I saw tears in her eyes. I don't know, she said, her voice breaking. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could be a good stepmother, but I wasn't ready. When your mom passed, I was scared. I didn't know how to love someone else's child, and instead of trying harder, I took the easy way out. She wiped her eyes quickly and looked away. It doesn't excuse anything, I know that, but I didn't know how to fix it, and by the time I wanted to, it felt like it was too late. I sat in silence. My heart was heavy, but a strange calm settled over me. Margaret wasn't the strong, untouchable woman I remembered. She was just a person, flawed and afraid, like so many others I'd met through my work. You want to make it right? I asked. She nodded. Then start by taking responsibility, not just with me, but with everyone else you've let down along the way, the people here who work for you, the customers who support this place. Be better, for them. I will, she said softly. I'll try. I didn't know if I believed her, but something inside me had shifted. I had spent so many years thinking I needed her to apologize to feel whole again, but now I realized, I had already healed on my own. I stood up and gathered the folder. As I turned to leave, Margaret reached out, her fingers brushing the edge of my sleeve. Thank you, Louise, for this, for everything. I looked at her and gave a small nod. Don't thank me, I said, thank the people who still believe in second chances. Then I walked out of that cafe, the door clicking shut behind me, and felt lighter than I had in years.